All right, Paul, the perfect story dropped today for us. The UFC rights with Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus just came out of the blue to win this deal, at least as far as the reporting that I saw was concerned. Though, yesterday, Lucas Shaw from Bloomberg added Paramount to the list of folks who UFC was having discussions with, and it was the first time I'd seen their name. He also included YouTube in that as well, which I hadn't really seen YouTube before. But Paramount Plus, they got the deal. They and the UFC came to a 7-year, $7.7 billion agreement, which begins January 2026, so right around the corner. We'll get 13 previous pay-per-views. They're calling them the numbered events, and 30 fight nights that will be on Paramount Plus. With, it sounds like, according to Dana White, 4 of those numbered events also being simulcast on CBS proper. How does that work for you guys, by the way?
Well, we'll get the CBS for sure, because CBS is carried on all the major cable companies, and you can even get it with rabbit ears, I think, if anybody still uses that. But as far as Paramount Plus, I have no idea. But I do know that, and people have been asking Aaron Bronstetter that all day, and he works for Sportsnet, who is the UFC pay-per-view carrier in Canada, and he has not answered anybody. So obviously he doesn't know. But I know
Paramount Plus is actively looking for the global rights as well. It looks like they will get the first opportunity for any deal that comes up.
So kind of like WWE with Netflix, I guess. The only thing, like, I can say that our Paramount, we do have Paramount Plus, but it is different than the US one. And every time, like for instance, Bellator ran on Paramount Plus for a while, and I mean nobody watched it. And I don't know if they were even getting any money for it, but we didn't get it up here. And they had there's a few other sports that they've carried over the years, and there's never been sports. There isn't even a section on the Paramount Plus app. I looked again today to make sure. There isn't even a sports section on there. Mm-hmm. It's all just, I mean, they have all the shows, the TV shows. They do have special events, like stuff like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's weird. Like and they have the news, and even CBS News is on there. But so I don't know, but I would imagine there's going to be a lot of people getting VPNs if this is the case, because I put it this way: if UFC is going to be free in the States, I am not paying $70, and that's what we pay up here. Yeah. It's a little cheaper. I'll just not watch the shows. Like I'm not paying for shows that are free in the States. No way.
So the Dave Meltzer wrote something, I think that is for the actual Observer that comes out on Friday, but is free to subscribers on the website right now. And he did the math and said something to the effect of, they probably need to do 7 million subscribers, extra subscribers to match the deal, and each year, whatever. Well, I forget whatever the math was. And Dave likes to do the conversion of straight conversion. This is the amount of money the membership is, and here's the amount of money, and here's how you get to that money. And I know he does it that way because it is easy math to get people to see, okay, what is the value to Paramount? What would UFC, the value of UFC? Here's what they think it will be. It means 7 million extra subscribers. Now, it doesn't always work that way, because in some cases you have ads. In some cases, especially with Netflix, there's an engagement side where it is valuable to Netflix if this show then converts to someone watching this show, that converts to someone watching this show. And that's they call that stat engagement. Some of these other platforms, though, they don't have great engagement because their algorithms aren't fantastic, and the way that they're built doesn't work like Netflix. But there's two things, and here's my big take on this deal. I don't think they're relying on 7 million new subscribers, by the way. What I think they're relying on is on two different things. One, they're going to go hardcore password sharing lockdown. This is how Netflix grew big time. Like over the last 2 years, I think they're pretty much at the end of it. I don't think they have gone through the accounts anymore. I think they're pretty much done with that. Disney Plus, I think, did some of that. HBO Max did some of that, and that's how you grow your subscriber base. It's like, okay, we know that there are 4 people using this this particular password. Instead, here's a $7.99 subscription. Do you want to use that? And that's how they kind of artificially, and artificially to us, but to them, they're like, this is, we want 1 subscriber per household or whatever it is. So I think there's some work there to do, and how many subscribers they can get out of that work. I think it's going to be a nice amount for sure. But other than that, I think there's going to be a price hike coming.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it's like in the States, but I do know that for Paramount Plus here in Canada, if I'm watching something on it and my wife tries to watch something on it upstairs, she can't. So they only allow 1 user, and there's only one tier that you can buy. So maybe they'll add tiers too.
Yeah, there's going to be ways they can finagle it. I don't know exactly how it works. I haven't tested it to see if
right. And the other as for I did some math, and I mean a $2 price increase would more than cover what they're paying UFC. And I think they're going to increase it a lot more than $2.
So the interesting thing about this deal is, for the beginning of the deal, the money is a little bit less than that average, and for the near the end of the deal, the money is more than what that 1.1, I think.
Most deals are like that. Yeah.
So because they keep hitting this $12.99 deal, that's like their marketing for this, as they're having their Mark Shapiro and people like that talk about it. And so let's say you can stay at $12.99 for a little while, because your payment to UFC is a little bit lesser, especially in that first year. And maybe you can use that as your hardcore marketing. You can watch the UFC for just $12.99 a month. And then 2 years into that deal, then you go, okay, we're going up by $3. And then the next year you go up by another $3. I think the price point that they want to get to is 20. And just that's just me sort of reading the tea leaves of these other companies. So 2 products that are about to come out in very soon. One of them is ESPN's app. Now they are at $29.99.
Wow.
A lesser promoted app that is coming out is Fox One. Fox One, their app is $19.99. Okay. So what do you get by watching Fox content? I mean, you get football, which is why they're coming out now, because you would get all the football if you're not in cable and you want to watch football. You would get all that. You would get some baseball World Series stuff.
Get Dwayne's League.
Say it again.
You get Dwayne's League.
you get the UFL, but you also get college football. So it's big for that stuff. And then I'm sure you're going to get all the archives.
I think they have college basketball too, which is big. They have some college basketball.
So that is already 20, and that is their early entry price point. So you have ESPN and Fox One going early entry at such a high price point, which probably is going to hurt their growth right away. So if you're Paramount, you can go look at these guys, look at how much more expensive they are than us. We're the better bargain. And here's what you get with our thing. So, but I do think that by those apps having those price points, you're looking at Paramount going like, okay, if we can get to that, and we can have very little churn, and we can still grow, we're in business, man. And that's, I think, where they get to.
The other thing that the thing about that, and I think we had a little bit of discussion about this today in the Discord. I wonder if part of that strategy of having that high price point is actually like a mental thing to try and actually convince people to either stay with cable or go back to cable. Because my understanding is that if you have ESPN on your cable system, you get that ESPN app and you don't have to pay the $30.
A lot of the cable companies are offering it, but not all of them are.
Okay, but for the ones that are, and certainly, and again, it's going to vary depending on where you are and what cable company you use and what other options there are. But for instance, here again, it's a little different, but when I did the math, it worked out that I could get everything I was paying for a la carte on my cable bundle, because finally, after years and years and years of losing customers, just drizzling away, the cable companies finally are started to figure out, wait a minute, if we want to keep these people, we have to change the way we do things. And they realized that sports was the main driver. So they started offering these packages that included the sports networks, and they included it for less than what you would pay for just getting the sports network. And it's like, most people don't even realize it. And for me, like, I switched back to cable, I save money. Now, again, there's some reasons that people like streaming, and you've explained it.
Yeah, I just like it for the freedom and for the apps and
and your virtual cloud and all that. Like,
the way that my cable, I actually I haven't tried Comcast here where I currently live, but when I was in Gilroy and I had the Charter, it was like 20 years like archaic, like Jurassic Park era cable, and I was like, I can't deal with this, especially if you were a DirecTV person, which kind of gets you almost to the modern times, and then to go back to cable, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like 20 years ago.
We're I would call it, what I have is almost like a hybrid, because everything that I have on cable also I have on streaming. So like, I can do streaming if I wanted to, but I like to have in the PVR. And we don't, unfortunately, have the cloud PVR as of yet, although I'm sure it's coming in 20 years. So it's interesting. And I did some other math too. And like, with this $1.1 billion, like, that's almost double what they're getting now. I think Dave had that in his article as well, which means that it's the equivalent. It's hard to break it down between the TV shows and that, but it actually works out to about $25 million per show. And so right now they're getting about $13 million per show, and that includes the fight nights. So I mean, and those shows, like, they're just profit. Like, the fighters on those fight night shows, like, Ryan and I did the math when we had our podcast going, and I mean, it was rare that all the fighters on a show would make $1 million combined. And they're making $13 million just for their media rights for that, plus ticket sales, plus merchandise, plus sponsorship. Like, it's ridiculous. But they're going to be getting the equivalent for the pay-per-view shows of approximately 600,000 buys a show. And there's no way they would be doing 600,000 buys on pay-per-view. So this is, I mean,
so then how does Paramount maximize the value from that? Some of it is going to be because they're going to be able to sell ads on some of the bigger pay-per-views, and then they're hoping for the growth in the. But
they're also going to be looking at the people that get the Paramount app that don't watch UFC, that get it for like Big Brother, Yellowstone, Star Trek, all the popular stuff. They're going to be subsidizing UFC for a while, I think.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing is if you are a UFC fan who is also a seasonal Taylor Sheridan fan, you're probably not canceling.
Right.
And that's also the big thing, is that monthly stuff helps with the churn. So,
absolutely. That's a great point, and one that needs to be considered for something like this, because UFC is every week pretty much. I mean, they do take the odd week off, but
all right, so let's talk about the WWE deal that just came out at the end of last week. So the WWE deal with ESPN, it's obviously a little bit less than this one, a lot less than this one. 1.6 billion over 5 years, and you have to use the ESPN app to watch this content. Now, there's been discussions about them showing some stuff on ESPN proper. I'm not, like, the way that Dave explained it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but doing it as like showing the first hour of WrestleMania on ESPN, and then you got to dump over to the app. It's the same customer, so I don't know how that helps with growth. But the idea of having this app, which is going to be $30, unless you have a subscription to ESPN on cable, I think they're going to try and get to all 100% of those folks, but it's not like that yet. WWE and ESPN, I think this is a very interesting relationship. The E in ESPN does stand for entertainment. Like that, they lead with the E in their brand name, and WWE is entertainment. So it seems like a natural fit. WWE will get more coverage just being an ESPN partner. They'll get more people on these goofy shows that people watch that I never watch, but they're very popular. And I think just for a brand thing, it's almost like being on ESPN solidifies something. What that thing is and how ESPN will deal with some of the fallout of some of the things that they do will be interesting. I don't imagine they're going to be too cutthroat with WWE because ESPN has their own problems. But, you know, if a talent says something that gets up to that level, do they, you know, have a conversation with somebody at, you know, with Nick Khan and go, hey man, like this person needs to apologize, like stuff like that is unsorted out. Well, and because the relationship hasn't even started yet, and it won't until WrestleMania of next year. So what do you think about WWE and ESPN?
Well, it's interesting because at the same time that WWE is moving to ESPN, UFC is moving away from ESPN. And I think that one of the things, I won't say it's underreported, but one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is the rise in popularity of UFC over the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of that has had to do with being on ESPN and the fact that their shows are promoted on those shows you talk about. They're promoted on Sports Center. They have UFC fighters all over there. Their UFC or ESPN is a destination program or a destination network for sports fans. It's the first place you go. So when you tune to ESPN, you would see UFC content, you know, if you stayed there long enough. Well, now that's going to be WWE that you're going to see. So number one, it may hurt UFC to be moving to a network that's not traditionally doesn't have a lot of sports. I mean, I know Paramount Plus has some. I mean,
the NFL is the biggest one, right?
Are they on Paramount Plus?
They are on Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
well,
you can actually
actually
watch on Paramount Plus. I think there is a live channel aspect to Paramount.
Oh, okay,
Plus,
okay. So it's basically whatever the main CBS game is for that.
So.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. Okay, so sports fans are used to going there, so it's not going to hurt as much as I thought. But they don't, and maybe they don't have you know, like a Sports Center kind of thing. But you know, maybe they'll develop that now that they're getting more into live sports. But in terms of WWE, I mean, that's already established, and Sports Center isn't what it was when we were, you know, in our 20s, but it's still something. You know, and then all these, you know, like the Pat McAfee show and your Stephen A. Smith and all that stuff, you know, PTI, I think is still going. So they'll have more WWE stuff on there by default. And you're going to have WWE wrestlers guesting. You'll probably have them on the you know, they still have the NFL pre-game shows on ESPN. So they'll be doing cross branding and all that stuff. And, you know, and that'll help them out a lot. And the money, like you said, it's quite a bit less, but it's not as much less as it seems like, because you got to remember, this is only for 12 events a year. Like the UFC was for almost 4 times as much content.
Okay, but what's the weight in those 13 events for UFC versus because here's the problem. Here's the problem with that deal. To kind of what you're saying, Paramount Plus's viewership is going to be so much less than ESPN.
Yes.
Those 40 shows, those fight night shows, it's going to be minuscule viewership.
It's already like the Fight Pass shows don't even trend on Google. And I think that Paramount Plus shows will be even less than that. And there is a history. I mean, like I said, we had Bellator on there already. And I mean, they never registered. Like nobody ever talked about those shows. You know, and eventually they just stopped doing it because I don't think anybody even noticed that they stopped doing it.
If you add up the PLEs plus Raw plus SmackDown, I think you get to that 1.1 billion or close.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. So the money is actually, like, I did math again, and I might be off here because this sounds really high, but the 325 million for 12 events works out to about 27 million per show. And if you go with the idea that WWE's cut on pay-per-view is like $30, if the pay-per-view was 60, That's 900,000 buys a show. They're getting the equivalent of. Like, there's no way anything but WrestleMania would even come close to 900,000. I don't even think it would. Like that money's insane, and it's only for the PLEs. Like, it's not. There's no archive component. There's no live weekly shows. Like, this was an amazing deal for WWE. But as we saw with UFC, when that thing was signed, 5 years ago, I think it was. At the time, I remember Dave saying it, and I think I was right with him. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And by the end of it, UFC or ESPN, like, it was a great deal for ESPN.
Yep.
So that could end up being the case here. If all of a sudden WWE's audience doubles because of all the exposure they're getting on ESPN, this deal might look cheap in 5 years.
I have a take on the timing of everything. There's a little bit of like kind of wondering speculation here on my end, but if you're TKO, you have both rights coming up at the same time, and you know the market. You're working with ESPN with the TKO deal. I mean, with the UFC deal. And so you kind of know what their feeling is around spending that much money to keep everything. And then you go, oh, okay, well, here's a great plan B. We have these PLEs that, and so, you can imagine that if ESPN likes the business of TKO, they don't want the A product. Okay, well, here's the B product, and you save money. ESPN opted out of the baseball rights. They said no to F1. So they're not to say that they're in a saving money thing, but they are not looking to, after doing the NFL deal and the basketball deal, they're not just looking to spend money like crazy. Like, they spent their money. So now they're looking for value. Mm-hmm. And if you're TKO, you're like, you're Mark Shapiro, like, hey, it doesn't look like this deal with the UFC for the UFC rights is going the way that we want. By the way, we have this other company that is going to pay us more. So great. But here's the PLEs. And I wonder how much of plan A, plan B they actually worked with ESPN on when it came to that.
Somebody on the F4W board pointed out that I think the deal that ESPN walked away from was $550 million for the Major League Baseball. And now they're bidding on a secondary package that is looking to probably go for around $200 million. Well, the difference between those two is what they paid for WWE.
Right. Smart.
So yeah,
really smart.
Yeah. So
WWE will help with that churn for that app as well. If you're a WWE fan, you're not canceling. So
and WWE fans have shown that they'll stick with whatever format. And again, like, every time they switch, it ends up being cheaper for WWE fans. I remember being so happy when the network started about how much money I was going to save, and I did.
I'm not sure it's cheaper necessarily than the WWE network was, though.
Well, it's cheaper if you already have ESPN.
If you already are paying for ESPN.
Yeah, and if you're already, and even if you're not, like, if you look at what that app is going to be offering, and then you kind of factor in, okay, well, how much of this am I dedicating to WWE? It's, it might be less than $10 a month. If you get an NFL and everything else.
All right, last one. You wanted to talk a little bit about Forbidden Door. I didn't watch Collision. Okay. I heard the results. I heard Brian and Dave talk about Collision. So what is your take on Forbidden Door?
Well, I mean, overall, I would just say that I'm just not really feeling it. And I mean, some of that is obviously New Japan is part of this, and they got the G1 going on, so they can't really commit to anything until that tournament's over. But I mean, like, we're going to have, like, it looks like it's going to be MJF and Hangman, which there's no way Hangman's losing the title in his first go round. We've got Tony and Athena, and I don't think anybody expects Tony to lose the title right now. And then, we got probably a bunch of AEW and New Japan matches, and one of which is Kyle Fletcher against a mystery opponent that, is really starting to look like it's going to be Hiroshi Tanahashi. And again, to me, like, the last time I saw Hiroshi Tanahashi on an AEW show, it wasn't pretty. I think it was against MJF. And, the problem is when he's in Japan and he's not having to, like, do these flights, and he's just kind of, riding the bus with everybody or however he's getting from show to show, like, he's in decent enough shape to work good matches. But if he has to do a transatlantic flight and show up, like, and get off the plane and be wrestling 12 hours later, like, with that broken down body, it's not easy. So I'm a little worried about that. And I'm just like, overall, like, I'm just wondering how much buzz there is for this show, and especially WWE kind of sucked all the air out of the room with SummerSlam, between Brock and the cash in and, I mean, basically that, and then whatever happened this week, which I still haven't seen. But it's like, it feels like AEW had all that momentum coming out of All In. And as we speculated, like,
always happens that way, right?
A week later, it was like it didn't even happen.
Well, how about I'm with you on Forbidden Door. Like, Forbidden Door is going to be fine. It's going to be a good wrestling show, but from the marquee standpoint of, like, is this a giant event? I don't think it feels like a giant event, but
I think it'd be a really fun live event.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
In London, like, that's gonna be great. Like, the crowd's gonna be nuts. I know people that are going to it.
So you heard the rumors that WWE is going to run a show in September that possibly may go up against All Out.
I don't think it's a rumor. I think it's happening, but
I mean, they haven't announced the event.
Oh,
yet,
okay.
So,
no.
As far as I know, they haven't announced the event.
And that, I mean, would likely be Brock, I would assume. Like,
I think it's Brock Cena. I think that's the match that they're going to run.
That is, I mean, this is what you talked about leading into All In. Like, if they're going to have competition, they got to be serious about it. Otherwise, don't even bother.
Garbage NXT at them. I mean, Saturday night's main event was an interesting one because of the idea that people would watch it on NBC.
It forced them to move. I don't know if Tony will move this one.
Yeah, it'll be that's the positioning and the gamesmanship that is going to happen because Gunther and Bill Goldberg, to a certain audience, I'm sure that was a giant match. In the current ecosystem of WWE, I did not feel like it was that big of a match. But if you're running Brock and John Cena, that is about as big of a non-title, non-cash-in, non-special match that you can get. And it's something that you've set up and that they're just waiting.
Take away the B from Brock, and that's the only other match.
That's the only other one. And look, to me, I don't need to see these dudes wrestle ever again because we've seen it a bunch of times, and neither guy is going to be at the top of their game, and they're going to do some sort of, they're going to do some smoke and mirrors thing to make it entertaining. But again, it's going to be more about what happens at the end of that match. What is the moment coming out of that match? Because that's how they book these days. How they're going to try and steal the headlines from All Out, right? Whatever happens at All Out, whether it's Christian and Edge or, whatever the title match is, WWE is going to just try and take all of the attention away based on what happens at the result of that Brock Lesnar and John Cena match.
It'll be interesting because if it doesn't work, then that's a big L for WWE. Like, and whereas the AEW kind of can go into that and say, hey, you know what, we're just going to put on our show, and what we do is what we do. And, and obviously put on a great show and see how they do. I think AEW almost has nothing to lose there. You know what I mean? Like, if they do 110,000 buys for a show that should have done 140.
All Out isn't a heavy buy show for them anyways.
No, although in this case, they're going a month later, and usually it's like 2 weeks later, or in one case, it was even 1 week later, I think. So,
I mean, the only thing I think that would matter is if, for whatever reason, it's like they do 75,000 buys, which they're not. Right. They have if they have a minimum audience right now.
But even if they do, yeah, it's an ego problem. But how much money is that costing? It's costing them like $3 million.
Yeah.
That's nothing. It's nothing. They could do zero buys.
It would hurt some feelings, though.
Exactly. Yeah. It would be an ego. It would be a hit to the ego. But in terms of like the bottom line, no. And then Tony can look at it and say, they threw the best match they possibly could at us, and we still did 75,000 buys. So you know what I mean? Like that's what That's why I say it's no lose for AEW, and they should just go ahead and put on their best show that they can, and whatever happens.
All right, we were able to get to 4 nice little topics there in half an hour. So I like that. This was
and we
really
got a lot of.
I
saw a lot of discussion about our show last week, so I was happy.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool. So it's kind of a because it is very topic specific, I think people know that, it's going to be interesting no matter what, because we're not talking about like, oh, this match that X, Y, and Z. It's like, nope, we're going to hit this is our topical show. So, all right.
Yeah.
That's it from here. Thanks to Paul Fontaine. I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.